to rock this place.
Welcome to the Buffalo Sports Conversation Room. I am your host, Jamie Malloy, and in this episode, we'll be discussing player positions. But first, I'd like to bring on my co-host, who is also a diehard Bills fan, a member of Bills Mafia, and also a fan of the big sellers last night in the MLB trade deadline, the New York Mets. Please welcome our guest, Mr. Joe DeLeo. Let's bring him on. Hey, right. Joe, how's it going?
It is going great. Great to be back here, Jamie. Looking forward to this.
All right. That's great to hear. That's awesome. So now, guys, for the first time on this podcast, we have a special guest, and you may already know him by his decked out car that he drives all over Buffalo. Specifically, he lives in Hamburg, New York. He drives this car to work. He goes to about five Bills games a year, and he invests his money in the team with a huge supply of decorations and memorabilia in this guy's basement. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, for the first time on Buffalo Bills Sports Conversation Room, Mr. Steve at the Bills Car Guy, and let's bring him on.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
How's it going?
Good to see you both. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'll just clear the air, Jamie. I do work in Hamburg, but I live in Amherst. So
okay.
But I do. It's a drive, that. So you have a good chance of seeing my car as I'm driving because it's quite.
I know it's a dope ride. I saw it on your Twitter. The minute I first saw your Twitter and he had a car like that, and he's got a car like that, it's like this guy's a stud driving this around. So anyway,
it's a lot of fun.
That's good. Anyways, to start our show, folks, it's that time again to ask out our football question of the week. So now that we have our first guest on the show, we're going to do a little something different and have Steve answer the question of the week. Do you mind, Steve?
I will do my best, Jamie.
Okay, that's all it's about, doing your best. And it's also about driving to the top eventually, just like our podcast name.
That's the goal. Got to get there.
Exactly. So before I digress and pontificate any longer, let's get going. So the question is, Steve, guess who this retired NFL Hall of Fame quarterback is by his stats? Now, before you answer, here are the stats. He threw for 300 career touchdowns, won 1 Super Bowl MVP, won 2 Super Bowls, and was a former number 1 pick. Again, 300 touchdown passes, 1 Most Valuable Player award, 2 Super Bowl titles, and a former guy who was picked number 1 overall. Is it Joe Willie Namath, Joe Montana, Troy Aikman, or John Elway?
I'm going to go with, and again, working my way up here, so might be wrong, but I'm going to go with John Elway.
Yes, he is correct, folks. You got the correct answer, Steve. Congratulations. You win the right to stay on this podcast. No, I'm just joking. But
the right to come on again.
Anyway,
someday. All right.
Anyway, it was John Elway. Before he became GM of the Broncos, and Broncos fans don't want to remember that time, but before that, John Elway was a famous quarterback for the Denver Broncos, originally drafted number 1 overall in the 1983 draft by the Baltimore Colts, but threatened to trade to Denver or else he was going to go play for the Yankees. And ever since, what a match it was for the Broncos, as he ended up with winning one Super Bowl MVP, which was in Super Bowl 33 and a 34-19 win over Chris Chandler's Atlanta Falcons. And he did win 2 Super Bowls. The first one was on a John Elway game-winning drive, a Jason Elam game-winning field goal against the Green Bay Packers. And also, as I mentioned, he won MVP in his second Super Bowl win over the Atlanta Falcons. So now that we got that question out of the way, we have questions to discuss. So, Joe, would you like to go first this time since Steve answered the trivia question for us?
All right. Yeah. And just so you know, Jamie, we're 2 for 2 with these trivia questions now. So 2 correct answers so far.
Knock on wood. Let's keep it rolling.
Don't make them too difficult, though. I shouldn't have said anything.
Okay.
Just don't ask me anymore. I'm usually good for 1, and that's about where I stand.
You don't got to worry about that. Anyway, so Joe, who do you think will win the fight at the middle linebacker position? Now, keep in mind, Tyrel Dodson has been there for 3 years and has started in 5 games. And Terrell Bernard was the Bills' 3rd-round pick in 2022 last year. And A.J. Klein has been serviceable as a journeyman veteran linebacker, but he's getting up there at age at 32 years old. So tell us on this podcast, what are your thoughts about that position? Who do you think's going to come out on top?
All right. An excellent question. And we have to be careful with what we say here, too, because we discussed some players last week who we thought might be fighting for jobs that are no longer on the team already. So you still never know what's going to happen. I like to go with the experts and go with the people in charge. And yesterday I saw Billy Beane, the general manager, giving a lot of high praise to Terrell Bernard. Saying, he's been impressive. And again, when you get the backing of the general manager for an open position like that, that would be my first guess, as far as, who's got the upper hand as far as that's concerned. A lot of people still talking about Dodson, saying that he should have a right to the job and he can still win it. Again, games and practice, going forward will tell. But Bernard seems to be making very positive strides. And based on what I heard, the last couple of days, that's the direction I would go.
I can agree with that. I mean, when he was drafted, he was only about 6 feet, 224 pounds. But again, he's super fast. He ran a 4.5 at his pro day, and he's got the motor. And he can rush the passer, and he's a great tackler too. So got all the tools to be a great replacement for Tremaine Edmonds this year. And Steve, I'm going to ask you, who do you think is going to win the middle linebacker position?
I think it's probably going to be Dodson, in my opinion. I think he's flashed the last couple of years when he has filled in for Edmonds. I don't think Edmonds missed too many games or many plays at all. But I think when Dodson did come in there, I think he was actually he stepped up to the plate. Like, it was hard. It was some big shoes to fill. And I do think that the defense is set up more to be reliant on their coverage and their pass rush rather than their linebackers this year. So I don't think it's as big a shoe to fill. But I do think Dodson will be the guy that wins that spot. And this is all speculation at this point, obviously, because it's a revolving door right now with the first team reps from what I've seen. But I do think that there's a good chance Dodson could come in and take that role and maybe have, a 80% snap count and maybe put one of those other guys in there to give him a little bit of a rest or something. But yeah, that's where I'm leaning towards.
Okay, so the score is tied 1-1 here, as Joe thinks Terrell Bernard, and Steve has Tyrel Dodson. Now, I personally think I'm going to break the tie here, and my tiebreaker pick is with Joe, Terrell Bernard, just because, like I said, you cannot coach his natural speed at a linebacker, and he's just plus with his ability to rush the passer, and he's kind of a great value, carbon copy. He almost could be a Von Miller type, but he's raw right now. But I think you can mold him into a a Von Miller type running a 4.5 and being able to just rush the passer consistently.
Well, and
So
you
there
said
you
the
go.
question was, who do we think is going to be? I do think it's going to be Dodson, but I want it to be Bernard because I actually do like his skill set a little more. And I think with a little more knowledge, he could come in there and be a very, very solid hybrid linebacker. But again, I think with the way the defense is, with the youngness of, you know, some of the defensive linemen and, you know, the backfielders, the defensive backfield is getting up there in a little bit of age. So you might want a guy with a little more maturity in there, but also athleticism is hard to be matched too. So that my heart is wanting Bernard, but my gut is saying Dodson.
Okay, there you go. That's a good fair and balanced argument there to make. Okay, moving on. Who do you think will take the starting right guard position? Now, Connor McGovern comes from the Dallas Cowboys, where he's an excellent pass blocker, but some folks say he lacks in run blocking. And then you have David Edwards from the Rams, who has made 45 career starts and has been there for 4 years there. And then, of course, you have our second round pick, but could have been first round pick if we didn't take Dalton Kincaid, Osiris Torres. And that guy's just a monster at 6'5", 347 pounds. I mean, you got to go to training camp. You're not going to miss him. I mean, he's like a monster truck, built like a monster truck out there. And he's got tread type of quick feet for his size too. So he'll be able to maul some defenders out of the way for sure. But anyway, Steve, do you want to go first and answer this one?
Sure. I think McGovern's going to fill in nicely at the left guard, but I do think right guard is most likely, based on from what I've seen at camp too, and like what I've been hearing on WGR throughout the days, is I think Osiris Torrance is going to be the starting right guard. But with the depth that we have, it's one of those, like, if you slip up just this much, we have someone waiting to get in there that's going to be pretty close to his level. Like, I don't think he's miles above the second string guy, but I do think that he is, first of all, he's a rookie. They've invested a second round pick in him, so they really want to get him going while we have, you know, I mean, he's a guy that can protect Allen well, I think, with his skill set and his size. And that's, I think, one of the things we might have been lacking last year. Was a monster up front. I think Saffold was a strong guy, but he just like I said last week in a different podcast, he just didn't cut it to the level we were hoping. So I do think Osiris Torrance, if he comes in and plays to his potential, he could be a monster left guard or right guard in the NFL.
That's for that. I agree. The ceiling for Torrance is very, very high. Joe, what are your thoughts on this question, or what do you think?
You know, I'm going to agree with our guest 100% here. I would love to see Osiris Torrance start. He's a rookie. He's going to make mistakes, but let him make those mistakes. You know, let him get that playing time. Let him get that experience. Just his size, his skill is just, you know, immense. And I think could make a big difference on that offensive line. Now, he's got an excellent veteran supporting cast around him, so that if he does struggle, you know, we got guys that could back him up. But I say get him in there, you know, let him start and let him, you know, again, get his experience, make his mistakes, and then hopefully develop into, you know, one of the elite linemen in the NFL.
Well, if you don't mind, with the right side being the way it is, having Osiris Torrance there and then Spencer Brown at right tackle, I mean, that's a huge right side of the line. It is a little less experienced than the left side of the line, which is good because the left side is the one's going to be protecting Allen's blind side. So it's nice to have some rookies rookies or younger players on the right side to grow. And Allen has the ability, like, oh, he missed a block, I'll just run around the guy who's rushing. So it's, you know, I think it's a great spot for Torrance to come into. You know, just like Kincaid, right? Coming into this offense for Kincaid, I mean, he hit the mother load getting drafted by the Bills and having Allen to throw to him. And I think Osiris Torrance is going to benefit from that just as much by being with the surround, you know, he's going to be in between Spencer Brown and Mitch Morse, you know, and Morse is he's probably, I don't want to say he's like a father figure because he's not, he's like 10 years younger than me, but he's got that probably where he can mold guys around him well, and the experience to coach him up, and help Torrance be better and maybe, learn things in the NFL at a quicker pace because he's got some experience on his left. And like, again, protecting Allen is it's a task, but it's not a tall task because he can do whatever he wants if he gets out of the pocket. So,
Right.
Never have to worry about Allen running. Just hopefully he does it a little bit less and stays healthy. But I love when he runs. It's
as long
awesome
as he
to
doesn't
watch.
catch passes in practice anymore, I'll be happy. That one made me upset.
Yeah, but that's something you're going to probably see in the offense is your halfback trick play. I mean, Dorsey wants to open it up.
Oh, I'm fine with it in the
he's got all these
games.
tools to do it.
They could do it all day in games if it works, but don't be throwing and don't have the corners hitting the quarterback. That was one of those hold your breath moments right there. And I'm sure Teron Johnson was holding his breath the deepest there because he was probably like, if he goes down, it's his fault. And whoever called that play in practice has probably gotten talked to, I'd guess. So,
yeah. But not a bad idea to try a little wrinkle there, though, in case you want to do it in the game. Just wrong timing. Anyway, keep hold your guys' things there. So anyway, now we're back there, folks. Joe, you want to go first with this one now? So
Yes.
Who do you think will be the starting running back this season? Is it going to be James Cook, who caught an amazing Tyreek Hill go route catch from Josh Allen in practice, Damian Thunder and Lightning Harris, Latavius the Wily Vet Murray, or Darrington carbon copy of Nakeem Hines replacement Evans?
From what I'm seeing, it's going to be James Cook, at least to start. But I'm sure Damian Harris will get plenty of carries, catches, as well. But everything I was looking at, which surprised me a little bit. I mean, last year I was a major James Cook backer. Again, give him the experience, give him the opportunities to live up to his potential. So I'm kind of happy that I'm seeing him as the first running back here. Again, he's going to have to, maintain that. He's going to have to produce in order to stay there. But that would be my guess at this point based on what I'm seeing. But again, Damian Harris, Latavius Murray are all going to get some chances as well.
Yes, they will too, especially in this offense. If they're already throwing passes to James Cook in training camp for touchdown passes like that, imagine what that could do in the regular season when you line up James Cook as a traditional wide receiver. Even if he doesn't run for 1,000 yards as a running back, he has the versatility to be able to do that to the offense as well.
Exactly.
Steve, your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts on it. I think at the end of the season last year, in the beginning of the season, it looked like the game speed was up here and James Cook was here. And I think it kind of switched, for James Cook especially, as the game speed kind of slowed down for him and his speed seemed to increase drastically. And I think this year in training camp, we're seeing that. We're seeing what his ability of what we saw at Georgia with James Cook. I think we're starting to see that come into him understanding the NFL speed a little more and realizing how talented he actually is. Because what was his first carry was a fumble, right? Last year, and then Vaughn said, take the next 170 to the house. And, he had an up and down couple games, and you could see him flash, and you see the moments in the, coming near the end of the season last year. And you're like, man, this guy's going to be something. And to hear how he's shining at camp is really exciting, especially knowing that when he's a little tired, who's coming in. We're not getting Zach Moss nothing against Zach Moss. He ran hard sometimes. He had some fumble problems, and I don't think he was a great running back in the NFL personally. But we have Damian Harris, who is also a guy who, if he gets to the second level, he can make you miss and he could break one. He's done it against the Bills. I've seen it. It's awful to watch when you're the opponent, but it's a nice 1-2 punch. And then Latavius Murray's no guy you want to knock off either. He's a strong running back who could come in goal line situations and maybe in pass blocking situations to help too. I do think James Cook can probably work on the pass blocking too, which will help because I think Singletary kind of lacked in that last year, which hurt Allen on a couple plays that if he would have had a second longer, it would have been a much bigger play. So, but I'm excited to see Cook do what he's doing. And if he continues on the trajectory he's on, he could be something special this year, I think. So.
No doubt. No doubt. Now, speaking of, you mentioned Von Miller, with the unlikelihood that he'll probably not start in week 1, who do you think will take his starting role? Do you think it'll be Greg Rousseau, who last year was starting to turn into a Von Miller as he got more playing time? He's another one that's just a freaking sack machine, not the biggest guy on the DM, but he's got such quick feed that it's nighty-night for the opposing quarterback, basically. And then you have AJ Epenesa, who is still playing on a rookie contract, and he's got a chance this year now to get more playing time with Edmonds gone to Chicago. Shaq Lawson, who played well on a 1-year deal last year, or Leonard Floyd, who, as I said, is a great value version of Von Miller. Not like name wise, but he's a carbon copy, and he can rush the passer almost as well too.
I agree. I'm hearing a lot of things about Leonard Floyd that he would be my choice for that. And again, I'm basically what you said, almost the, Von Miller, generic version. Like I think we talked about this last week, the Walmart version of Von Miller. But that would be my go-to, in that situation, just because, again, value, a similar type of player, obviously not Von Miller, but, definitely somebody that can help out there.
Okay, Steve.
I agree with that, Joe. I think that Leonard Floyd coming in there, I think, he learned from Von, obviously, when he was in the Rams, and they were playing there together. I'm sure he learned a great deal from Von. I do think the other end will probably be Greg Rousseau, maybe subbing in with Epenesa. But again, that's another position that kind of sneakily got deep. It didn't seem like so long ago that we had this excellent pass rush, but now it's kind of like, who are we going to put in there? And I won't discount the fact that Brandon Bead said there's a good chance that Von could start week 1. I'd rather have him come back fully healthy on week 6 if he does, like they said. Right. But he's not ruling out the fact that he could start week 1, maybe on a low snap count. But I think Leonard Floyd's definitely the guy that's going to come in and fill that little bit of a void. Well, not a little bit, huge void that Von is when he's out. And he's going to be a guy to keep an eye on. They said today that he plays his hands are really violent when he plays, like with, knocking defenders down so he can get by them. And his motors go, and he's just always high intensity. And he said, just like Von, just like we always talk about, he's a Walmart version of Von, but I think he's a great version of Leonard Floyd, and that's what we need. So I think he'll do very well.
Yeah, I agree. With both of you guys, I think Floyd fills the void. So yeah.
Let me tweet that one out real quick.
Right, I
Go
like
ahead,
that.
do it.
With the poet.
Yeah.
You didn't know it.
Yeah.
So like I said, we're all three of us agreed that Floyd fills the void. That's good.
Yes.
And anyway, next question is, who do you think will be fighting for the second cornerback position behind Trey White? We have Kaiir Elam, first round draft pick last year, who started the season a little slow, trying to learn the speed of the cornerback position, but improved as the season went on. Eventually got to be the starter after a certain guy on this list who we know and love was hurt, but we're going to mention him. Dane Jackson, who is just assistant consistent corner and has been another draft gem that Bean and Co have been able to find in the later rounds. And speaking of the man, we're going to talk about Christian Benford, the 6th-round pick in the 2022 NFL draft, who actually won the starting job at the initial number 2 spot last year, but was hurt, and that allowed for Elam to come in and fill that void too. So, Steve, what are your thoughts first? Who do you think is going to be fighting for that position?
I mean, it'd be easy for me because I drive a truck all day, so I listen to WGR literally like 8 hours a day. So it'd be easy for me to say, oh, Dane Jackson, he's winning the battle right now at camp. He's been starting with the ones all the time. But again, I'm going to go with my heart on this one, and I want Elam because we invested a 1 in him. He's 6'1". He's about 190 pounds, somewhere in that range. And they say he's really good at man coverage. That was kind of his go-to in college. He was excellent at pressing and being physical at the line. And I think they need to use that to his strengths, knowing who we have at safety back there to kind of play in some kind of zone coverage over him. And Dane Jackson is a consistency. He kind of has similar feelings to when I think about Dane Jackson, I think about the same way I felt about Levi Wallace. Like, oh, he'll do. That's it. That's kind of how I feel. And I like Dane Jackson. He's a solid player for where he was drafted and, where he, fits the mold for the Bills. But you put a 1 into Elam, that's who you want to see succeed. And then obviously Benford would be a great story, but I also think he could be molded into a safety. So that's a whole different level of conversation. But I want Elam to be the number 2. For sure.
Yeah, and what you described about Elam is sort of like, again, Trey White 2.0. Like that's what he kind of was known at Florida, and kind of pretty cool that he was a corner in the SEC who could be molded into another version of Trey White, just like Trey White played in the SEC. And again, we could have 2 on an island corners, 1 and 2. That would be great. It's kind of like having 2 polished wide receivers, but in the backfield there. So, and don't forget about who's the other guy we're talking about here. There's another person we talked about last week who we don't want to count out either, but try to remember who exactly it was. There was another corner that we already said Taron Johnson's going to be a good nickel guy, but don't count. But like I said, don't count out. Like I said, don't count out Christian Benford, who, like you said, could be molded into a safety. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. So, Steve, I'm going to start out with you now. Who do you think will win the 5 starting wide receiver? Be the starting 5 wide receivers on game day, especially with the latest signing of Andy Isabella, who's just a speed burner. I mean, are you kidding me? This guy runs a 4.31, and he's a great kick returner as well. And I know this is looking way down the road, but the possible contract disputes with Gabe Davis now and in the next offseason.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the 5. I mean, 5's a lot because you're never really going to have 5 on the field. It's very rare that they would go 5 wide, 5 wide with all receivers. But I think that for the receivers that are going to be starting, of course, we have your definites, which is Diggs and Gavis. Mm-hmm. And then I believe they really liked what they've seen from Deontay Hardy. They said he's kind of like a faster McKenzie, which is, it's hard to picture that because McKenzie was quite a little speedster. But they said Hardy also is really good off the line with his route running. I think the guy described it this morning that when he was watching Hardy come off the line and do a little zig move and do a slant, it said it was like his eyes couldn't keep up with him because it was like he skipped a scene and was over here. And that's a great thing for the release of a fast guy if he can get off the line and get down the field quick. If Hardy keeps improving the way he is, obviously Shakir would be a real nice thing, but he's just not really separating himself from what I see. So I do think it's going to be Diggs, Davis, Hardy. Obviously, I wouldn't mind seeing Justin Shorter do well. Once I get past the third, once I get past the slot, it's really hard to say who the fourth and fifth. And the reason I say Shorter is because I feel like he can come in as an outside guy, like behind Davis. He's 6'4", 223 pounds.
229 when he was drafted, actually.
Yeah. So he's listed on the website right now as 223 on the Bills website, but that could be, 6 months of hardcore training with the Bills staff can probably get you down a few pounds. But, I wouldn't mind seeing him come in behind Davis, but there's been big physical receivers we've had in the past that I've been high on and that just don't cut it in the NFL on game day, like Duke Williams. A lot of Bills fans were excited about him when we got him from the CFL, and he just never really lived up to his potential, I think. So it's, yeah. And then the fifth receiver could be, it depends on what you're looking at. Shakir, Sherfield. I think once you get past those two guys, you're looking at, I think, Brian Thompson and Jalen Wayne. Those guys might end up on the practice squad depending on who we have as a kick returner. If it's
Jalen Wayne, for the update's not on the team anymore. They released
Oh, did they? Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah. You're right.
Because they signed Andy Isabella to replace him. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you. But don't sleep on Khalil Shakir, because he did spend the offseason working with Eric Moulds and training with him. So let's see if that could pay off too. And Justin Shorter, he reminds me of like a Mike Evans. He's built like Mike Evans, and he's just a huge, big target that can, eventually play on the outside and go grab those big 50-50 balls in the end zone and everything. Yep. So yeah,
I forgot to refresh my Bills roster. That's why I didn't. I had the one. So Andy Isabella is now on there, and I would put him probably in the top 5 up there as one of the guys that is going to make the team. Obviously, with his speed and experience in the NFL, I think he's a little older, 26. So I think he'll actually be on the team, maybe as a return guy. But I don't know. The return game is such a question right now since Hines went out. It's like, who's going to be back there doing that? We'll see.
Yeah, Joe, what are your thoughts?
I think we got the right guest on our show, because I'm agreeing with absolutely everything he's saying here. The cornerback situation, I would have said the exact same thing. I really want, Elam to come out on top here, although Dane Jackson is kind of leading the way right now. But, back to wide receivers, I'm pretty much on with the same 5. You got your, Davis, Diggs, et cetera, Shorter, Hardy. I'm one for slot receivers. Sherfield, I would like to see more and just maybe make those catches that some guy named Beasley used to make, when you need that third down play and
safety blanket.
That's it. He's going to get, he knows he's going to get leveled, but he's going to catch the ball anyway. He's going to hold on to the ball, get that first down. So I'd like to see him step up into that, So, Shakir is another one that I'd really like to see do well. You were talking about kickoffs and punts, and he might be one of the guys doing that, and we'll see how that ends up. So, but I'm pretty much, in the same opinion as far as, the 5 receivers, and time will tell, which ones as far as those bottom 3. Let's say, end up getting the most time. But I think each one can play their part. Again, maybe we got that third down receiver, and some of these other guys can step in when you're not expecting. So, again, depth is a nice thing to have, and it looks like this is another place where the Bills have it.
Yeah, and I think adding when you think about Kincaid and how he's been just shining at camp every day, it really is hard to pick a third receiver to get in there, because I do feel he'll be in that spot sometimes, as the 12 personnel, to get him as like maybe a flex out or bring him in because we're going to audible to a run play and have 2 tight ends blocking. So it's really hard to say like, oh, there's going to be this definite 3 guy out there. It's going to be Hardy. It's like, well, it could be Hardy 40% of the time and Kincaid 30% of the time and Isabella 20, it's like, right. It's really hard to say, but obviously along those lines, I agree with everything too. So it's good, but Kincaid's going to play a big role in the offense, I feel, this year too. So
yeah, and there is some guy named Dawson Knox out there too, that'll make some noise as well.
Yeah, he's all right.
Yeah.
Don't forget, there's also some other guy named Jay Sternberger as well. He's pretty good too, I heard.
Yeah, he's pretty tall, right? What, 6'5", 6'6", 6'4",
6'4", 251 pounds, man.
Yeah, they said he's shy. He's kind of raised some eyebrows, I think, at camp a little bit. So that'll be interesting to see. It's depth is something that I don't think the Bills fans are used to. So it's going to be. But when you have a good team, this is what happens. People want to come here and they want to fight for a shot to play with them. So
exactly.
Depth and salary cap space now too, which is good this year. They got $5 million in cap space after the moves they made last year when they were over the cap. So now let's talk a little bit about training camp. Do you guys have any thoughts about how it's been going? But before that, okay, Joe, what are your thoughts about that?
About how training camp is going? I mean, it seems to be going well, and you got some guys stepping up. I was reading something about some guy named Diggs that the Bills have, and how his attitude's been amazing. And I keep hearing things. I think we talked about this last week, but about how whatever was going on with him, at the end of last season, is gone. And the attitude is fresh. He wants to win, like we've said. So that's very positive to hear things like that it seems like a very cohesive unit. As was mentioned, it's a team that people want to be a part of. It's a winning culture that people want to be a part of, and they're going to be fighting to be a part of it. So, it's only a week in basically, but from what I've seen, there's a lot of positive here so far.
Yeah, I believe his best friend Justin Timberlake once sung in a song, "The old me is dead and gone, dead and gone." Anyway, Steve, what are your thoughts?
I've been hearing a lot of good stuff. If we go based on just today, I think they said the offense was struggling. But it's one of those half full things, right? You can look at it and say, okay, the defensive line, I think they said was manhandling the offensive line in one of the things I saw. And you're like, all right, we have a pretty good defensive line. So is that really concerning or is it exciting? That's the thing with camp. When you're watching your team practice against each other and that we have a really good offense and we have a really good defense, something's got to give. And I think each day the offense has been really shining. And I think today the defense shined and everyone gets all concerned. And you're like, okay, listen, just take us, we need both teams with both sides of the ball need to shine. We can't just have the offense torching the defense on every play. That would be very concerning in my opinion. So I think the camp is going exactly the way you want it to. And I'm going to knock on wood here, but with what you've seen at other camps, I think it's, it is a good unit. You'll see a couple scuffles here and there, but I was watching and I have a huge respect for the Chiefs and for Mahomes and for what they've done in Kansas City. But there have been probably 3 times, maybe 2 times where I've seen Kelsey catch a ball and the defenseman went for the ball trying to punch it out. And Kelsey turned around and punched the defenseman right in the head. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, are you above your own teammates? Is that where you think you see yourself as better? And I think in the Bills culture, it's the beautiful thing about our culture in Buffalo is they've built a team atmosphere all the way around. And everybody doesn't feel like nobody feels like they're above the team. And I think, Joe, as you mentioned, Diggs kind of circled back to that and said, I'm here for the team. There were some questions in the offseason and, media, they're going to blow everything out of proportion as much as they can. And Diggs just kind of railed it back and said, no, I want to retire a Bill and I want to play here and I want to win. And he's uber competitive. So I think that camp is going about as well as you could hope. And our number 1 draft pick is shining above what I think anybody thought he was going to do in camp. Mm-hmm. So what's there not to be excited about, in my opinion, when it comes to camp? So,
yeah, I mean, something's got to give, but even before that, let the bodies hit the floor, right? So, yeah, there you go.
Jamie, all the music references, gotta love it.
Right, I like it. Jamie, what have you seen at camp that stands out to you?
Well, since I wasn't able to go, but I've seen on the news Diggs's positive attitude, the continuation of culture is there. I mean, the team just absolutely they love each other, they care about each other, and they play for each other. They're together every single day at camp. Allen's there not just for the turkey burgers, but hey, the whole team's there for the turkey burgers. That's what's great. So everybody just even if they might not like the turkey burgers, they show their same appreciation for their teammate Josh Allen, who happens to like turkey burgers, to show that they're all collected as one, even with something that doesn't have to do with football, like the turkey burgers. But yeah, basically anything that they're a La Familia. They just are.
Exactly.
100%.
Now, I heard that Jordan Poyer wasn't at training camp today. And any thoughts on what's going on with her? Because I'm sure his best friend, Micah Hyde's definitely worried a little bit. What do you guys think?
I mean, I kind of know what's going on there. So, Joe, I'll let you hear your perspective on it. I don't know if you heard what happened this morning, but
I did not. I heard it was a personal day. They sometimes rest the veterans' personal day. I haven't heard anything besides that.
That's what it was. I mean, that's okay. They were concerned at first, and again, I had WGR on from 6 a.m. until the end of camp today, so I was hearing everything, and that's why I'm aware. It's just they said, "Oh, Jordan Poyer's not out there. He's over on the sidelines, and he's in street clothes, and he's practicing over. He's doing some stuff over with Vaughn." And you're like, "Oh no, is he injured?" And they said, "Oh, we just confirmed it's a veteran rest day." And you're like, "Okay, well, that's good." Because every time you see that, like I always look for when they send out the Bills injury report before every game, you're like, please be vet rest, please be vet rest. Okay, it's vet rest, thank goodness. Because you see a major name and it's usually a good veteran like Diggs or Poyer or Vaughn, and you're like, oh no, oh rest, okay, thank goodness. So yes, that was the news about Poyer. From what I understood, is he was just having a veteran rest day, and he, in my opinion, I think he earns as many of those as he wants.
Yes.
Exactly. Also, Tim, I don't want to settle, was also on the sideline with his street clothes and riding on the stationary bike again. What's up with that? Or do you think that's another vet rest?
I don't think that one was vet rest. I think he did injure himself, maybe tweak something. From what I understood there, and based on what I was hearing today, is that it was just he did have some kind of setback or injury. So he's, it's kind of like Nyheim Hines, where you're like, I would be disappointed if anyone's injured or hurt or misses some time, but there's another guy right there behind him ready to fill in if he does go out for a couple weeks or however long. So hopefully he's okay and comes back, because that's a good place to have some depth. There's fresh bodies in there on the defensive tackle position. So, but that's what I heard. So Joe, I don't know if you heard anything else.
I did not. No, I wasn't even aware of the situation at all. So, that was news to me now. Okay.
So now, do you guys really have any other thoughts about camp before we move on, or what do you guys think?
No, I don't. Like I said, I'm very happy with what I see so far. I think, Bills fans, I think pretty much all Bills fans are. They know what they got to work on, and plenty of time still to go, before the preseason games start. So I think Bills fans should be encouraged.
I agree. And Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just one of those things with camp where it's an exciting time to watch. And I'm going to that red versus blue scrimmage on Friday. So it's an exciting time, when your team is well. But everybody has the preseason hopes, right? And ours are a lot higher than they used to be at the beginning of the season. But everybody has those hopes, right, until that first snap happens on game day. See where it's at. So camp is exciting to me, but I think I'm getting to the point too of my life where I've seen enough camps, and you're like, okay, I see a lot of good things at camp. I see some bad things at camp, but it's once you get to that official game speed is when you really say, okay, we got ourselves a really damn good team. And I think that's what we're going to see this year. based on the talent on the team. And I think camp just kind of gives a little example or a little shining spotlight on this is what we could be. But when we go full speed, we are going to be very hard to stop, and we're going to be able to stop a lot of people. So that's where I'm at with camp. It's still like I get so excited. I'm like a little kid on Christmas when it gets close to football season. I'm probably more excited for that than I was as a kid looking forward to Christmas. So
I'm actually the same way. So, yeah. So now it looks like we're out of time. So, Joe, where can we find you in the social media world?
I was going to say Twitter, but now there's no such thing. Head on X, Joe Dal Sports on Twitter/X.
And
I'm still going to call it Twitter.
I am too. It's right. Yeah,
like it's still the Ralph or it's still the rock pile for people, and we'll call it Twitter.
Exactly.
Until they ban that word. So, and then I'll say my handle right here. You can see Steve is what you'll see there, but at Bill's Car Guy is how to find me on Twitter, and that's where I interact with most people and meet most Bills fans that I'm not actually friends with officially, and I've been connecting with a lot of them on there. So. It's great interacting, and you get, like I say, you always get me talking about football. I'll talk all day. Give me a chance.
That's great. And lastly, you can follow yours truly on Bills Chat 1 at Bills Mafia Chat, and also at Jamie Malloy, the unbiased journalist, at DJ Dog Tags on X, and Defiant Takes football.com there. And I also write for Defiant Takes Football about the Buffalo Bills, Syracuse football, and spring football. And I also write college football sports on another site called fanbuzz.com. Thank you very much for listening, folks. And remember, no matter what they say about the Bills, they say it can't be done. They want to question and cancel your character. They want to bring your aspirations down. But remember just one thing in this podcast, folks. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. And thank you, Chris Berman, every day for reminding us about that. You are truly one of the biggest members of Bills Mafia, and you kick some serious butt on ESPN as well. So thank you very much, folks, and we will see you next time.
All right.
Bye, guys.
To